Good morning and welcome to the start of your research project. It's a crazy ride from here on out, and the bulk of the work that you'll do is going out and finding academic peer-reviewed research that you read, understand well enough to annotate. That's what the critical annotations are all about. Not only to give you lots of practice, but to keep you on track because it can easily get to the end of the project and you haven't read enough to actually be able to answer your own question in a way that makes sense. And also, this is the part of the process where you have to start thinking about all the different ways there are to answer the question that you asked. So you've got your questions in. Those came in last night. I'll be looking at those over the next 2 days. They're going to take priority, that and the posting of grades for the library module over the test, because the test is a done deal. Like, we're not going back to that. You already know what your skills are in terms of reading, and now you have to put those into practice in reading the articles that you find. And so the test grades won't come in until next Monday or Tuesday, because we're going to make our priority the question that you need to have set and ready to go and asked well before you start in on next week's work. The biggest problem that students have with this part of the class is, I guess there's two. There's two big problems. The first is getting a solid question down on paper. Very often, students conflate a question with a statement. So we're not asking a question that really is making a statement, starting an argument we already have a strong feeling about, and then going and finding lots of stuff that just reifies what we already believe. We're literally asking a question about something we don't have good answers to. It needs to be something you care about enough to spend time with it, and not care enough about that you're going to be so emotionally involved in it that when you find research that disagrees with what you already think, you come apart emotionally. This class is difficult enough in the summer without you having to come apart emotionally. So choose a topic that's interesting to you, and then within that topic, choose an issue that's interesting to you, and then the hard work. We're going to, over the next few days, hone an excellent question about that issue. So one question that I've been wrestling with for the last few months is with regard to hospice. So here's an example for you to kind of work with. My father died in January, and he was lucky enough to die exactly how he would have wished, in his own home, in his own bed. And one of the things that made that possible was hospice. Hospice is care for the dying. It's a little bit different than palliative care, which is care for those who are not ever going to be cured. So one of the questions I have been really struggling with as a researcher is what the impacts are of our expectations of hospitality. So things like restaurants, hotels, resorts, when they come to bear in a hospice situation. If someone's coming into your home and giving you care as you're dying, or if you go to stay in a hospice home as you're dying, our only cultural understanding of situations and relationships like that tends to come from hospitality industry expectations and experiences. And yet that's not a really good fit when we're talking about end of life. So I have been doing research recently on whether or not anyone's done research looking specifically at our expectations of hospitality as they pertain to hospice care and the end of life. That does not mean that it's a simple thing. It doesn't mean I'll find good answers. But what I have to start with is a good question. And so a good question worded academically would be something along the lines of, what are the impacts? Now that presumes there are impacts, but there have to be some impacts. What are the impacts of hospitality expectations on end-of-life experiences? So that wording is very formal, and we're intentionally going for that formality. That's what you want to find as you build your question as well, is that you've left it as open as possible to find as many points of view as possible, including the answer that there isn't an answer, because that itself is an answer, and that you've worded it formally enough that you haven't accidentally led yourself to your own conclusion, or so generically that the answer is yes or no. So this question part is a really important part. Now, you've already turned in your drafts, so you'll be getting a lot of this feedback from me specific to your own submissions, but I wanted to say that generically as well. Some people will end up working on their question for another week while they try to get it nailed down. That doesn't mean that you're off the hook, though, from starting to research, because all of next week and the next few weeks will be you finding articles that are academic and peer-reviewed. And I'll just pause here to say, use the library databases. If you try to do this online with Google Scholar, you're either going to find you only have access to the abstract, and that's simply not enough, or you're going to find that they want you to pay for the articles. You have access to all of the things you need for free in our library databases. That doesn't mean it's simple to find. You've got to use all those mad skills you just learned in the library module and get into the database and spend time changing your keywords, changing how you search, limiting by dates, limiting by full text. All those little things that just come with practice, kind of like playing basketball. It's going to be frustrating at first, but every student I've ever had who spent any time practicing got significantly better at it. So you're going to be finding academic peer-reviewed articles that are full text. You're going to send me the abstract so that I can take a look at the source, the date, the page range, and what the content is about. I'm going to respond to you with a yes or no, this is great, or this is not appropriate for the kind of sources we're looking for. And that keeps you from having to spend your time, waste your time really, on things that aren't going to be appropriate. Now, can I say that this article is going to speak directly to your question? No. But what I can do is help you avoid just the basic errors like, oh wow, this is from 1984 and it's about autism. We've come a long way in our thinking about autism since then. Or this is a book review. Book reviews are not academic peer-reviewed research articles. So that's going to be a step that helps you avoid some common missteps. Then you're going to read the article, and you're going to write an annotation for it, and you're going to submit that for a grade as well. And if you have questions about how to write that annotation, there's in every folder for every module that we'll do, there's a specific set of instructions called Critical Annotations Explained. If you're smart, you'll use all the questions in the paragraphs as a guide for yourself. So you'll literally think about it as, have I answered in this paragraph all of these questions? Now keep in mind three things. The summary paragraph should be nothing but summary. You will not be including tons of minutia. It's a paragraph. You also will not be including any of your own opinion. It's summary of the work you read. The second paragraph is assessing that work, and it's assessing it not in light of how it fits your thinking or your project, but assessing it in light of, is it reliable? Does it contain any bias? What biases do we need to know about? How does it fit in the conversation that you're finding has emerged in the research in answer to this question? So you put it in relationship to other articles, but not in relationship to your own project or to your own thinking. That final paragraph, reflection, is where you get to have an opinion. That's the only paragraph in which you belong. You're going to talk about this article in terms of your project, your question, and how it may or may not be effective in helping you in the answering of that question, in the search for answers for that question, etc. So, lots of work to do. Lots of repetitive work to do because we're literally building a tool belt in which we have tools to go about doing research, which only happens with lots and lots of practice. Ask any questions you have and stay on pace. That's simply the most important thing you can do for the next 3 or 4 weeks is not get behind, because if you get behind, you're going to be sunk. You're going to find that there's too much to do all at once. So keep on top of things, ask any questions you have, and let me know how I can help. Your grades will be coming soon for your exam, and I look forward to seeing how you responded.